everybody. Apologies we're a little bit late. Hopefully resolve some technical issues that we've been having. My name's John Cooper. I'm Head of Housing Solutions for Wolverhampton Homes. And I'm joined tonight by Michelle Garbutt, who's Housing Policy Officer for the City of Wolverhampton Council. And we're going to talk for a little while tonight about some of the changes that the City Council are making to their allocations policy. Hopefully give you some useful information. And then we'll be happy to take any questions that you have on the allocations policy, and hopefully give you some answers. We should be here for around 30 minutes. As I say, we're going to start by talking about some of the things that are changing, and then we'll take some questions. So we're going to start off. Michelle's going to tell us a little bit about why the policy has been reviewed.
Hi everybody, thank you for listening to us. So Wolverhampton City Wolverhampton Council's allocations policy hadn't had a substantial review for many years, and we needed to make sure it was still effective and that we were making the best use of the homes that we had available. Stock has been coming less and less in recent years, so we needed to make sure that we had something that was going to be effective for the future. We also wanted to be able to make sure that people in the greatest housing need could access social housing, and we also wanted to make sure that the offer we have is realistic, and so people understand what is and isn't available to them. So in 2019, we're going to full review the current policy, consult with internal and external agencies, local councillors, MPs, the public, and did a random sampling of housing register applicants. We listened to the feedback from consultation, and we took the policy to approval in February 2020.
Lovely stuff. So we're going to tell you now about a few of the main changes to the policy. Michelle's going to start off with some of the changes that are taking place, which affect children of the same sex that are in the same household.
Okay, no decision is ever an easy decision to make, but the reality is that we don't have the larger properties available to us. And so even if you could have the banding under the previous policy, the chances of actually moving was so slim. And back to that idea of being realistic, so we wanted to deliver a policy that was realistic and be honest about the expectations.
Yeah, so as you say, the shortage of larger properties is pretty extreme in the city at the moment. Just looking at the properties that became available last year, 56% of them were 2 and 3 bedroom properties, but only 1.3% of them were 4, 5 and 6 bedroom properties, and therefore, as Michelle said, the council took that tough decision to allow children of the same sex to share up until the age of 21 from 15, and that will be implemented on all applications from the 2nd of August when we restart advertising. Okay. One of the things I wanted to talk about was changes to priority for customers who are overcrowded in their homes. We're aware that we see lots and lots of people who are overcrowded, and the City Council has made some again tough decisions about where they can increase priority for those customers. So there are now some emergency band categories for customers who are overcrowded. So anyone now that is short of 3 or more bedrooms, anyone that's short of 2 or more bedrooms whilst living in a 1-bedroom property, and anybody who's releasing 2 or more bedrooms from their council or housing association property, or Wolverhampton City Council Housing Association property, will actually go now into the emergency band. So it's a real effort to try to assist those people who are in the most overcrowded situations to find alternative accommodation. Michelle, you wanted to talk about the changes to Band 4?
Yes, so this is probably the big one. Now, I need to be louder. I've been told I need to be louder, so I'm going to try and be louder, although you might have preferred it before. Yeah, so closing the housing register. To be absolutely honest with you, I actually understand that people might feel upset about this one. And actually, I think I can understand the comfort that it can bring, just knowing that you can sit on a housing register. But the reality is that, by and large, being in Band 4 means that there's no identified housing need. And you've got very little chance of being rehoused. And so in consultation with others, and I mentioned earlier about the consultation we did, the decision was made to no longer operate an open housing register and instead work towards better housing options for those looking for housing. You may have gathered that John is a stats man. I'm not sure whether he wants to give any statistics around Band 4.
Yeah, we had a look at the properties that we let last year, and there was only 24 properties that were actually allocated to Band 4, and that makes up just 0.2% of the housing register. And the only properties that were let to Band 4 were one-bedroom properties. So anybody in Band 4 who doesn't need a one-bed, really, there is no chance of being rehoused in Wolverhampton because of the demand from people with greater housing needs. And that figure in terms of the amount of properties that are allocated to Band 4 has been going down pretty consistently over the last 8 years or so, as the level of demand for our properties has increased. I just wanted to talk a little bit about debts and the way that we look at those under the new policy. Obviously, we're really aware that there's some really tough financial situations out there, especially now after during the pandemic. So the City Council has taken the decision to increase the debt level before people are placed into a lesser preference category. So anybody now who owes a debt of £400 or less than £400 will not see any impact on their application. That's increased from £60 under the current policy. What the council have also said is, if the debt is up to £600 and the customer is claiming universal credit, then again nothing will happen to their application, so they won't be downgraded in any way because of that. So I hope that is a really positive sign for people who are experiencing some really difficult housing circumstances. I do have to add though, if there is a possession order against your property, then we do have to take that into account, I'm afraid. Okay. Michelle, you're going to talk a little bit about local connection?
I am, yes. We've taken away being able to apply a local connection to your housing application, which meant that you could bid for 25% of properties?
Yeah, one in four properties per area of the city.
1 in 4 properties per area of the city. I think on that one we need to say that it's still a choice-based letting scheme. You can still bid on areas of the city where you want to live. The reasons behind taking it away is because we have so different areas of the city. So we would see areas of the city where there would be quite a few properties come up for let, and then certain areas where there wouldn't be hardly anything. So you wouldn't stand a chance in some, you stand a chance in others. But we do, however, recognise the need for maintaining communities and for the stability of communities. So where we are building new build schemes, we do have a new build local lettings plan, and percentage of those properties will still go to people with a local connection to that area. So that helps with that one.
Thanks, Michelle. So, next steps, I suppose, is the next thing to talk about. As you may know, right now we're in a bit of a pause from advertising properties while the Homes in the City website is being rebuilt by our colleagues in system development. Properties will start to be advertised again on the 2nd of August to people that have a current housing application. Over the next 2 months, we'll be writing out to everybody who has a live application, and those people that have recently registered, to invite them to re-register and have their application assessed under the new terms of the allocations policy. As I say, you will receive a letter. There'll be some really important information on there that you'll need to note, in terms of your current application reference, because you'll need that to make sure that we can transfer the length of time that you've been in your current band onto your new application, and any medical or social needs that we've awarded to you in the past. As I say, we will be asking you to reapply, and we'll be asking you to reapply online, as the vast majority of people that have applied to homes in the city do that, apply by that method.
There's quite a bit of time for that, isn't there, John?
Yeah, the existing applications will remain open until the end of September, but we do want to get as many people registered as possible, just to make sure that nobody misses out on that first set of adverts at the end of September. But all the information about this process will be contained in the letter, and there's also tons of information on the Homes in the City website and the City Council's website about these changes. Just wanted to pick up a couple of really sort of key messages as well, just in terms of the I mentioned medical needs being transferred over. One of the things I just wanted to emphasise about medical housing needs, it's really important that if you supply some medical information, that the information contains three pieces of key information: what your diagnosis is, how the condition itself is affected by the current home, and how a move to an alternative home is going to improve that condition. We do get sent lots of information that contains one of those three things, or sometimes doesn't contain any of those three things, which we're not able to award priority for. And I know it's important that especially if you've had to pay for a letter from the doctor, that it contains the right information. But there is some information on the Homes in the City website about that as well. I would also point out that over this next 2 months, we won't be taking applications to enable people to bid over the next 2 months. We won't be taking new applications. So if you're asked to reapply, you'll be able to do that, but that application won't be made live until the end of September, but you can continue to use your old application. However, if you have an emergency housing need, and again, there's lots of information about what an emergency housing need is on the Homes in the City website, you can complete a form, and we will look at that for you to get you up and bidding now if there is an emergency housing need. If you are experiencing homelessness, or you're threatened with homelessness, we would still encourage you to speak to the housing options team, as they may be able to prevent that homelessness or provide you with temporary accommodation if necessary. And of course, if you're experiencing domestic abuse, there's a link on the Homes in the City website that you can follow that will give you some advice and will enable you to fill in a short form for our sustainment and support team to get in contact with you to look at how we can keep you as safe as possible, either in your home or elsewhere. Okay, have we got any questions yet?
Yep, have a look. Okay, we had a few that came in earlier. So I'm in band 1 but still haven't been allocated a home. How will this change things for me?
Well, sadly, it is a slow process, even for those with really high housing need, like a person in band 1. What we've seen over the last few years is the number of properties that we have to allocate has reduced, and that makes it more and more difficult. We're always trying to encourage people to look at other housing options, because we know we will never have enough properties to go around, and if you need a home in a particular area of the city, that can make it extremely difficult, because the city council properties and housing association properties in general aren't evenly split through the city. There's much more council housing and housing association properties in the west of the city than there is there's more in the east than there is in the west of the city. So really, what I would encourage anybody with high priority to do is to make sure that they're looking at all properties that they're eligible for, and looking into all of the housing options which could resolve their housing need. And again, there's tons of information about housing options on the Homes in the City website.
But I think again we've addressed some of those band one issues, haven't we, by allowing that extra 5%?
Yes, absolutely.
So we're allowing extra, yeah.
So under the new allocations policy, 5% of properties will be specifically advertised with a preference to people in band one, and there'll be another 5% that are advertised to customers in band two. So to give people as much choice as possible, but sadly it is choice within a limited market, I'm afraid.
Okay, this is another one that came in earlier today. I'm living in a one-bedroom flat with my 3 nieces after their mum died. Will I be able to move to a house?
Wow, that's a hell of a difficult situation to be in. Yeah, I mean, that would be one of the scenarios that would benefit from this change to the allocations policy. If you're living in a one-bedroom property with 3 children, that makes you short of 2 bedrooms. So that is one of the new emergency housing needs. So it's key that when we send you a letter inviting you to reapply, that you do so, because I think
But I guess the other
that
part,
should help.
yeah. But I guess the other part to that is that it might not necessarily be. Sorry, the other part to that is that it might not necessarily be a house. It could still be a flat or masonry house.
Absolutely. So you would with three young children, you'd be eligible for a 3-bedroom house, a 3-bedroom flat, and a 3-bedroom masonette, and we get far more flats and masonettes becoming available than we do houses at the moment.
Yeah. So another question that came through earlier was, what does choice-based lettings mean?
This is John. This is John.
Choice-based lettings is a system that we've been using in Wolverhampton for many years now. What the main thrust of it is that it allows customers to place bids on homes that they wish to be considered for, rather than us having them on one huge list that we pick people off when we've got a property that's available. So that aspect of the housing allocations policy isn't going to change. We'll still be advertising homes. We'll still be expecting people to place bids on those homes, and you'll still have choice, but it is choice within a limited market.
Yeah, perfect. So the next question, I've got high priority to move to an adapted property, but I've been waiting for ages and none have come available. How does it work?
For people waiting for an adapted property, it can be quite a long and difficult process, because we need to make sure that the property that we allocate to you can be adapted to your needs, which can sound pretty straightforward, but I think it's important to remember that the properties that the City Council owns in the main are older properties that weren't necessarily designed to have walk-in showers fitted, or through floor lifts, or be wheelchair accessible. So not every property can be adapted in that way. When we have a property, or when we have somebody at the top of a shortlist that needs an adapted property, we will do an individual assessment based on the information that's come from a customer's occupational therapist, telling us what they need to see whether that property can be adapted to their needs. And we do have a number of properties that have already been adapted, and our first port of call is always to advertise that with a preference to people that need the adaptations, and to allocate that property to the person whose needs best match the adaptations that are present in that home.
Great. Next question. I've sent my medical evidence, but it hasn't added any priority to my application. Why not?
As I said earlier, the sort of 3 pillars to awarding medical priority are about knowing what the diagnosis is, what the actual medical condition is that you're experiencing, knowing how it's affected by your current home, and knowing how a move to an alternative home would improve those conditions or make them easier to manage. If that information wasn't on that letter, then we're not going to be able to award priority.
Yeah, great. When will the system be back for bidding?
We will be running
That's a quick
adverts from the 3rd of August.
Perfect. Okay, this one's a long one, so bear with me. So, why have you removed the rule where if one child was turning 9 and they were sharing with another child, then they could bid on 3-bedroom houses? Now they will need to wait until 10.
We haven't.
We haven't.
Oh, okay.
So when a child reaches 9, they will
Yeah.
become eligible for a 3-bedroom property. When the child reaches 10, their priority will then increase to band 1.
Okay. Next question. Are we going to see we come on the list on the new scheme, as I've been bidding for nearly 3 years and no luck in a 1-bed? We're all living on top of each other.
Similar to the first question, I think it was, people who are living in a 1-bedroom property will see an increase to their priority, especially if if they are overcrowded in that home. We aren't able to publish exact shortlist positions because there are lots of criteria within the allocations policy that we have to factor in when we're shortlisting. For example, if it's a ground floor property, we need to consider those people who need ground floor. As I just mentioned, if it's an adapted property, those people that need the adaptations. So sadly, at the moment, we're not able to publish shortlists, but I think you may see something positive from your application, or your reapplication, I should say.
Yeah, perfect. Another question. How can I reinstate my bidding number, please?
There's a form on the Homes in the City website to fill in if you wish to reinstate your bidding number, as long as it's not been closed for more than 6 months. If it has been closed for more than 6 months, then I'm afraid you're going to have to reapply.
Great. Next question is, I bid on properties for 8 to 10 weeks ago that are still empty, and it says still allocating. Why haven't these been given to anyone?
I think probably most of those are going to be housing association properties, which in the past we've been unable to provide feedback on. We're continuing to look for ways to be able to get information from the housing associations as quickly as possible, so that we can try and update our system on those. It is something that we want to improve. When the lettings team within Wolverhampton Homes are shortlisting properties, we're focused really on the properties that are ready or nearing readiness, to make sure that we've not got properties that are ready to let and standing empty. So there is often quite a little bit of a delay between the property being advertised and allocated, but it's important to remember that the property is advertised right at the start of the notice period, so there's probably 4 weeks worth of tenancy left, followed by a repairs period before that property is actually ready to let.
Perfect. Next question. We are in an emergency band due to my husband's disability. He had an independent OT assessment and report was submitted to Wolverhampton Homes. Will he need to have a new assessment?
No. Excuse me. No, we'll carry over any medical or adaptation priority that's already been awarded when you reapply. That's why it's so important to add your current application number when you reapply, so that we can match those applications up.
Yeah, great. Next question is, I've been bidding as a band for 4 years. Has this time been a waste of my time and yours?
I don't think did we get a band there, Sophie?
I've been bidding as a band 4 for years.
It's a difficult one to
Yeah.
answer, because the situation has changed quite considerably. over the last few years. In the past, we would say definitely not. There would have been a chance for people in Band 4 to find a home, but what we've seen over recent years is that more and more people have come to us with higher housing needs, and the number of properties that we've had to allocate has reduced. So it's really led City Council. Sorry, Michelle, I'm kind of speaking for you here.
No, it's fine. I think what I was going to say, I mean, John's explained the first bit perfectly well, but I think that's kind of the reason why we've closed the register, because you could have been sitting there for 10 years with some hope and expectation of getting a property at some point. And I think the reality is, as John's just explained, is that we haven't got the stock to do that anymore. So yeah, we're sorry that you've been on the list for such a long time, but we are trying to address it by closing the register. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've added a lot more information on the Homes in the City website about alternative housing options that you can investigate to try and find alternative accommodation.
Yep, great, thank you. So next question is, how do you apply for a housing association home?
Right now, I think only Midland Heart are taking direct applications through their Midland Heart home system. So if you just go to their Midland Heart website, there'll be a link on there. The majority of other housing associations advertise the majority of their properties through Wolverhampton, or through Homes in the City, I should say. They only have to advertise 50%, but from some recent meetings that we've had with them, they're advertising a few more to make that to make that housing association offer in the city really as positive as it can be. They won't probably advertise all of their homes. They may do some internal transfers for their own tenants, but I think you will see the vast majority of properties come through Homes in the City.
Yeah, great. Next question. I have a 2-bed with a 19-year-old boy and a 6-year-old. She has to live in my bedroom. How old does she have to be to have her own?
She, a 19-year-old boy, 6-year-old girl. You should be eligible for a 3-bed property now, and you should have quite high priority. So it is just a matter, I would think, of looking at what options are available in terms of which properties you're placing bids on to find that move.
Yeah, great. We're at the end of the questions for now, so that's fab. But if people do want to keep posting, we'll pick them up, and send us private messages and we'll pick them up that way too. So thank you very much.
There's just one last question if we just do that before we finish. So when you mentioned debt earlier, what debt is that? Debt with Wolverhampton Homes or debt with loan companies or other companies?
Sorry, I should have explained that more clearly. It is housing related debt, so it's a debt of rent arrears, service charges, court costs, rechargeable repairs, anything associated with living in a social housing property. We don't consider council tax when we're doing those debts, or debts to other agencies, shall we say. Okay. Lovely. Thank you very much for all your questions. As I say, if you'd like any more information on the changes to the allocations policy, there are links on and information on the Homes in the City website and on the City Council's website.
And if I could say thank you too, and thanks for listening to me and John. It's mainly John, but thank you.